Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Sit Call. This week we're excited to have Captain Shalondra Suto here with us. Captain Suto is a social worker and currently working in Paradise, also known as Honolulu, Hawaii. Welcome, ma'am, and we can't wait to learn more about your profession.
Aloha.
And also, we have our team from our Valencia Medical Recruiting Station, Sergeant First Class Phillips.
Hi, good morning.
Sergeant First Class Michael Q.
Morning.
And myself, Staff Sergeant McMenemy.
So good morning, Captain Suto. And would you start out by out this morning, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. So good morning, and thanks for providing me with this opportunity to get to let everybody know about what it is that I do. So I've been in the Army for 15 years. Part of that time I spent as enlisted, and then I commissioned in 2012, and eventually went on to become a behavioral health officer. Currently married to another active duty service member. We have one child and 2 dogs.
So Hawaii is a pretty good place to be, ma'am, huh?
Yes, it's a good place. I've been here a year now, so it's nice.
So, ma'am, you received your commission through the Army's MSW program, correct?
Yes, I did. So in 2013, I commissioned in 2012, but the graduate training didn't kick off until 2013, and so that is through, at that time, the Army's satellite campus on Joint Base San Antonio. It was through Fayetteville State. Currently, it's through the University of Kentucky, and so that was a 14-month program, pretty intense. Most of that was classroom instruction, and then there were periods where we would go off-site to do some internships.
Ma'am, what was your experience like during the internship phase?
So there was actually the internship for the graduate program, and then the internship, like the clinical internship following. So the internship for the graduate program was actually, it was brief. I want to say we did it a couple of times. Each time, I think it was about a 3 to 4 month rotation. So my first internship was with CPS. I primarily worked on the west side of San Antonio. That gave me a lot of really great experience. So when we do social work, we learn a lot about working with the oppressed, the vulnerable population. So a lot of times, initially, if you're a civilian, you may do a lot of work with like children and families and homeless and et cetera. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn more about that agency. I think more of my civilian counterparts usually spend a lot of time doing CPS initially, because that was kind of like the foundation for social work. We went through CPS. And then my second internship was with a nonprofit in San Antonio, also located on the west side. And I worked with children, adults, and there was a senior facility there. So I worked with seniors as well. And then transitioning after graduate school to my clinical internship, that was a little bit over 2 years. And the focus of that internship was to make sure we rotated through various clinics so that we can get a more holistic understanding of what our role would be as an active duty social worker. So there's rotations where we work under like a multidisciplinary team. There was a BHO rotation. So interns will do a variety of rotating to make sure that they have a pretty good concept of what this job's going to look like. And then that lasted a little bit over 2 years.
Very cool.
So, ma'am, how did you learn about the MSW program?
So when I was a sergeant, E5, I was in NCOSC of a mental health clinic, and at another clinic was a senior social work officer who would just kind of come around and check in with me, and periodically kind of, ask me about, my interests, and kind of introduced me to the program. And initially it was just something that I thought was like, oh, that seems like a good idea. It seemed like a lot of work. And then he kind of kept coming around, and then it got to the point where it's like, all right, Sergeant Suto, like, what's the status of your packet for this program? And I was like, oh man, like this got serious. So it went from kind of like a general interest to, okay, wow, like at the time he was a lieutenant colonel, like this lieutenant colonel he really must see something in me. There really must be some potential. Let me take this seriously. And so little by little, things that kind of initially felt overwhelming, I started accomplishing. Like, okay, I had to go back and raise my GT score. I had to put my packet together, all my administrative stuff. I had to get letters of recommendation. So once I started accomplishing all those things, I felt better about the process. And then it eventually led up to me having my packet, boarded, and then I got accepted. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things where the opportunity kind of fell into my lap. I was at the right place, the right time. I knew the right person, and then it all just came together.
Awesome. Where all have you been stationed?
So my first duty station was Fort Drum, New York, which I'm a Florida girl, so that was fun. Lots of snow, but I met my husband there, so that actually worked out perfectly. And then my second duty station was Fort Stewart, Georgia, and that was the first duty station my husband and I PCS2 together. And that was my last duty station being enlisted. And so I transitioned from being enlisted to being an officer down at Joint Base San Antonio, where I did, I've done all my medical training up until this point and continued with my graduate studies. And then from Joint Base San Antonio, I PCS to Fort Hood, where I did my clinical internship and my first BHO rotation. And now I'm currently at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii.
Darn it.
It's rough.
It's rough. So, ma'am, what's your favorite thing about your job that you do?
So the favorite thing that I love about my job is, and I mean, it's kind of considered my job, but it doesn't feel like a job, is any opportunity that I have to get out of the clinic and be around soldiers. So I find that I am the most probably enthusiastic, I'm the most bubbly, I'm the most, I guess, fired up about what I do when I'm just out and about talking to soldiers. Whether it's, walking around, the motor pool, whether it's, when times I've been at NTC, out in the field, just sitting around, getting to know soldiers, getting to know more about their story. They're just all very interesting, and they're funny. And so it's just nice to just kind of chit chat and catch up with them. But I also feel like because of that, relationships become developed, trust, I build rapport. And what I found, especially since I've been here and at a previous unit, is when folks see my face often, when it comes time for them or to refer soldiers to me, they're very comfortable doing that because they already know who I am. And so that's what makes it fun for me. Any opportunity to get out of the office and be where the soldiers are, that's always a good day for me.
I think something that we hear a lot, and a hard thing for us as recruiters to kind of address sometimes is do y'all hear feedback when I speak?
Yes, I do.
So I'm not going to speak. I'm going to pass the mic to one of the other guys to ask.
Ma'am, how does your job in the Army compare to employment as a social worker in a civilian workplace?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's a good question because there are some key differences. So clinically, right? So how it normally works when you're a BHO is that if you're in a non-medical organization, you will kind of work out of a behavioral health clinic. And the behavioral health clinic is usually staffed. It's usually a multidisciplinary clinic, and it's staffed with primarily civilian, social workers, psychologists, a prescriber of some sort, nurse case managers, and then some sort of like administrative support. And so, as an active duty social worker, I deploy, right? Like I go where my unit goes. So that's primarily the difference in terms of my mobility. Like I am more out and about than my civilian counterpart, who would be primarily housed within the EBH or respective behavioral health clinic. It's kind of installation dependent, right? So some installations may use their civilians a little differently, but for the most part, the civilians belong to the hospital or to that military treatment facility, and they primarily do their work out of a clinic, whereas as a BHO, a behavioral health officer, has the flexibility to do some work in the clinic, be out and about consulting with commands, talking to people in the motor pools or wherever, out in the field when we do field training exercises, any sort of national training, whether it's NTC or JRTC, we go to that, we deploy. So I think that's the big difference, is that our sole purpose as active duty behavioral health officers is to be fully embedded, fully integrated with our unit and go where they go.
Nice. So, ma'am, many of our applicants have families before they decide to join our team. What is it like for you as an Army family?
I caught a little bit of that. So the question, since I have a family as a soldier, what is that like?
Yes.
Okay. So because my husband and I are both in, it can be a little challenging, but I will say from stories that I've heard from other couples, we have truly been very fortunate, and we have been very blessed that for the 15 years that I've been in and the 17 years that he's been in, and the going on 12 years that we have been married, we have had every single assignment together. Now we've swapped deployments and swapped training. It's been a situation where he's gone somewhere and gotten back just in time for me to roll out, and then vice versa. So that was our life at Fort Hood. But like I said, like we have been very fortunate being a dual couple in the military. We've had excellent commands who have been very understanding of our circumstances. And, when we've come up on the net, if there's something that we saw that might have been a potential challenge, command has been extremely supportive in supporting us and helping us kind of figure out how to navigate any sort of challenges we may have had with somebody being gone, and then the other person kind of having to figure out how to still be present and still be a soldier, but maybe have to do it in a way that might not have been ideal, but considering our circumstances, we just had to be flexible and make some changes. So for me and my family, we've been very fortunate. My son's 5, so he seems like he's just rolling with the punches. Kids tend to be very resilient. So we try to explain things so it makes sense to him as much as possible. But we've been lucky here coming to Hawaii because we live on post versus at Hood. So he has a lot of children in the community that he plays with. So it's been special. It really has. And like I said, being an Army family is the best because everybody around us gets it, and has been more than willing to help us, navigate this so that we don't feel like we're alone. So it definitely takes a village, and we have our village. So
Very true. I think speaking about family life is a good time to ask the next question. What does a normal day look like for you?
yeah, so it's funny you said normal because that's an interesting word. So I think So half of my time here at Hawaii has been spent under a pandemic, which is just very interesting. And so, because of that, my new normal is more consistent of I'm in the clinic part of the time, and then I am teleworking another part of the time. And that's just, for protection measures here so that, we can keep people safe. So for me currently, my normal day to day, several days a week is me coming in and conducting virtual care of the folks that I have scheduled. So me doing my therapy visits virtually, and doing my administrative work in the clinic. And then the other part of my time, if I don't have folks scheduled, I'm tracking commanders down to give them updates on their personnel, or I'm reaching out and doing check-in with people that I haven't spoken to in a while. Usually there's a lot of interaction with my techs or my 68 X-rays, and so those are the paraprofessionals that work underneath me that I supervise. Um, and so they're my force multipliers. So I spend a lot of time, consulting with them, or them staffing cases with me, mentoring them, um, the different projects and administrative things that we have going on. So for me, it's kind of our role is it's supposed to be seen kind of 50-50. It usually isn't 50-50, but if I'm not doing direct patient care, I'm doing some sort of administrative work behind the scenes related to a patient, or related to the administrative parts of my position. And so that's kind of what my day, it's not the same every day, but there are some similar aspects of my day, day to day.
Awesome. So, man, we have time for one more question this morning. If there was one piece of advice that you could offer someone interested in pursuing our Master of Social Work or one of our social work internship programs, or a career change into Army medicine as a fully trained and licensed social worker, what would that be?
So I have two tidbits. I'm going to cheat. Um, and these are two, I think, very equally important things I found over the years, just from my own experience and then just from working with other people. The first thing that I would say, if considering whether you're a civilian and you're going to be new to the Army, or you're already in and considering a career change, would be to um, kind of understand that an active duty social worker is very different from a civilian social worker. The expectations are different. You're still going to practice and you're still going to provide that clinical treatment, but how the Army utilizes us is just going to be very different. And that difference is a good thing, because it's in the intent of it is for us to really be able to take care of the soldier in a way that's very different from kind of a clinical setting sometimes when we're not in a clinical setting, right? So we got to be very quick, we got to be agile, we got to be innovative and creative in the way that we provide care, because sometimes we're in environments that are not typical. And so sometimes we have to be able to be flexible and provide atypical care. So I think I really need folks to understand that, when you're coming into this profession, you just got to be flexible and open-minded about the way that we practice care, and it's ultimately in the best interest, for the folks that we see, and making sure we're taking care of soldiers the best way. The next thing that I would say that I think is very critical to our well-being as behavioral health officers, are relationships. I think relationships are so important. They're so valuable. I think they're important for our mental health as caring professionals. And so I cannot stress enough, if you're coming into this field, taking advantage when you're in that training environment and you're learning and growing as professionals, to maintain those relationships, because you may often find yourself, once you've completed all your training, in situations where you have to reach back. And so sometimes you may be the first in your position, and there might have not have been another person. And so it's just critical as you grow and develop in the field, to make sure that you hold on to those relationships, because we really need each other, and sometimes it gets a little lonely, and it's great to be able to have battle buddies to always be in communication with, especially when you deploy, because you can be replacing somebody or somebody could be replacing you. And it's just awesome to be able to reach out and say, hey, I've got this going on. I need help. So maintaining those relationships and that network is extra critical.
Well, we'd like to thank you, ma'am, for taking your time out of your busy schedule and also fighting through with us with our technical issues today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to kind of put us out there and let everybody know what social work officers in the Army do and what we're all about. So thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
Awesome. So this will wrap up another episode. We want to thank our viewers for tuning in with us live. And as always, we welcome your questions. So with that, you can comment below or on any of our other social media platforms. We hope everyone has a happy, healthy, and safe weekend. And we look forward to seeing you again next Friday at 10 a.m. here on Sick Call. Bye.